Dylan's shocking arrest. Who really killed the victim? In a twist that no bone in Los Angeles saw coming, Dylan's shocking arrest. Who really killed the victim? Explodes across the oil of the bold and the beautiful with the kind of high-stakes drama that has defined the series for decades. The occasion opens with portentous daylight over the megacity, the golden light reflecting off the glass of Forrester creations, but there's nothing glamorous about the pressure stewing beneath the face. Dylan, formerly floundering to rebuild her character after months of rumored dishonors and shattered connections, finds herself at the center of a felonious disquisition that threatens to destroy her life. Police enchantresses slice through the morning calm, drawing the attention of staff and family likewise, and within moments uniformed officers step into the Forrester exchange with grim expressions and a leave in hand. The shock on Dylan's face is raw and unmistakable as she's informed she's under arrest for the murder of a victim, whose death has rocked the inner circle of the Forresters and Spencers likewise. Gasps ripple through the room as Ridge demands answers, Brooke looks stricken, and RJ stands frozen, unfit to reuse what's passing to the woman he formerly swore to cover. The victim's identity, long teased in spoilers, turns out to be someone deeply entwined in recent battles, making the blameworthiness against Dylan both presumptive and suspicious. Just hours before, heated words had been changed behind unrestricted doors, and several substantiations claim they heard crying. Yet as the police lead Dylan down and bind, her voice rings out in hopeless denial. She swears she didn't kill anyone. Her tearful asseveration shops the first seed of mistrustfulness in the minds of those who know her stylish. RJ, devastated but disaccorded, renewals every recent argument in his mind, wondering if he missed signs of insecurity or if someone is setting her up. Meanwhile, Ivy watches the arrest unfold with an undecipherable expression, her once conflicts with Dylan far from forgotten. At the station, investigators outline the substantiation fingerprints on an armament, a ruinous voicemail, and a timeline that places Dylan at the scene. It looks watertight. But on this show, appearances are infrequently the whole verity. Flashbacks reveal fractured moments. Dylan arguing with the victim, someone lurking in the murk, a mysterious textbook communication that allured the victim to an isolated position. Each scrap complicates the narrative rather than clarifying it. Back at the Forrester manse, Brooke confronts Ridge about the family's pattern of secretiveness, and how it may have contributed to this tragedy. Ridge insists the law will handle it, but indeed he cannot ignore the feeling that commodity is out. As word spreads, media exchanges gather outside the jail, turning Dylan into the rearmost libelous caption. Bill Spencer, ever the opportunist, contemplates how the chaos could shift power dynamics in his favor, but indeed he seems unsettled by the brutality of the crime. Rumors swirl that the victim had discovered a secret bone that could have reared connections and business alliances likewise. Was Dylan silencing that secret, or was someone additional hopeless enough to kill to keep it buried? The followership is shown a nipping scene of an unknown figure wiping down a face, suggesting a cover-up in stir indeed as Dylan sits in a holding cell. RJ's fermentation becomes a focal point of the occasion. Torn between fidelity and mistrustfulness, he visits Dylan in jail. Their discussion is electric with emotion. She pleads with him to believe her, averring she was framed. She claims she went to defy the victim but set up them formerly injured, shocked and fled, an action that now makes her look shamefaced. RJ's heart pangs as he listens, knowing her fear could be genuine or manipulative. The complexity of their relationship adds depth to the riddle love. Does end automatically equal innocence? Meanwhile, unanticipated alliances begin to form. Ivy, who has disaccorded with Dylan constantly, shocks observers by venting her own dubieties about the substantiation. She recalls seeing someone differently near the crime scene that night but dithered to speak up, stewing she wouldn't be believed. Her vacillation could have bring Dylan dearly. In a dramatic turn, she decides to come forward, setting off a chain response that forces investigators to review corridor of their case. Still, the forensic substantiation remains compelling, and prosecutors are eager to move forward. The occasion adroitly intercuts courtroom medications with private competitions. Brooke presses RJ to dig deeper, intimating that the family's history is riddled with backstabbings and half-trueness. Ridge meets with the family attorney, strategizing how to shield the Forrester name from farther damage. At the same time, Whispers circulate that the victim had lately argued not only with Dylan but also with another crucial player. Someone whose motive may be far stronger. A retired fiscal disagreement, a romantic treason, and a long-standing grudge all crop as possible vestments. In a stunning mid-episode reveal, security footage shows showing Dylan entering the structure, but not easily landing her leaving. The timestamp is distressfully altered, raising questions about tampering. Who had access to that system? The answer points toward someone with specialized moxie and particular stakes in the victim's silence. As pressure builds, observers are treated to another flashback, the victim hanging to expose a verity about maternity, a verity that could shatter multiple relationships. However, it would give several characters motive if that disclosure were true. Dylan's censure scene is gripping. Standing before the judge, she appears fragile yet bent, contending not shamefaced. The execution paints her as jealous and unpredictable, driven by despair. Her defense counters with inconsistencies in the timeline and the possibility of planted substantiation. The courtroom gallery is packed with familiar faces, each replying else. Some skeptical, others probative, all apprehensive that the fallout will ripple through their connected lives. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the victim had been manipulating multiple people, exploiting secrets to gain influence. This disclosure shifts dubitation outward. Could Dylan have been the intended fall Joe from the morning? A late-night meeting between two shadowy numbers hints at a conspiracy, their hushed discussion suggesting they no way intended for the verity to face. The pressure heights when RJ discovers a deleted communication on the victim's phone that implicates someone additional entirely. The communication references a lucre and a trouble, neither connected to Dylan. The emotional stakes consolidate when Dylan breaks down in her cell, scuffling with the possibility that indeed if she's innocent, public opinion may no way forgive her. Brooke visits, offering unanticipated compassion, reminding her that this family has survived dishonors ahead. Their exchange underscores one of the show's enduring themes: redemption is possible, but it frequently comes at a steep cost. In the final act, a stunner substantiation comes forward claiming to have seen another person fleeing the scene moments before the crime was reported. The description matches someone observers would no way suspect, a character long perceived as innocently upright. The thriller ends with investigators knocking on that person's door, leaving cult reeling. Dylan's fate hangs in the balance, her innocence not yet proven but her guilt no longer certain. This plot consummately blends suspension with emotional depth, reminding suckers why the bold and the beautiful continues to allure after decades on air. Dylan's shocking arrest isn't simply about a murder blameworthiness. It's about trust, treason, and the fragile bonds that hold families together under unconceivable pressure. As secrets unravel and alliances shift, one question lingers over each: if Dylan didn't kill the victim, who did, and how far will they go to keep the verity buried? As the fallout from Dylan's arrest continues to ripple through Los Angeles, the world of the bold and the beautiful descends into a storm of dubitation, treason, and emotional reckoning that feels nearly Shakespearean in compass. The morning after her censure, captions scream allegations across every tabloid and entertainment feed. Pundits anatomize her facial expressions in court, non-natives debate her guilt online, and the formerly hopeful developer finds herself reduced to a mock of reproach. Yet inside her holding cell, stripped of glamour and character, Dylan is simply an alarmed youthful woman replaying every second of that terrible night, searching for the moment where everything went wrong. Back at Forrester Creations, the pressure is suffocating. Meetings are cancelled. Models brood in corners. Buyers question whether the brand can repel another contestation. Ridge attempts to project calm authority, averring that business will continue as usual, but indeed he cannot silence the apprehension in the room. The victim's death has come more than a felonious disquisition. It's a moral fracture line running straight through the company's heart. Brooke watches the chaos unfold and still wonders how numerous times this family can survive implosion before commodity truly unrecoverable happens. RJ meanwhile gyrations. His love for Dylan wars with the ruinous substantiation piled against her. He remembers her horse laugh, her ambition, the vulnerability she infrequently showed anyone differently. But he also remembers the argument the night of the murder. Voices raised, allegations hurled, a door slammed with futurity. He'd walked down angry. Now he renewals that choice endlessly, asking himself whether staying might have changed the course of events. His guilt becomes its own captivity, enmeshing him in a cycle of what is. The disquisition intensifies when investigators uncover fiscal records showing the victim had lately transferred a significant sum of plutocrat into an coastal account. The source of the finances is unclear, but the timing is suspicious. Prosecutors suggest it was hush plutocrat. Maybe Dylan had paid to keep a secret buried and also excluded the trouble when the victim demanded more. Yet that proposition begins to deteriorate when the defense produces substantiation that Dylan's own accounts were nearly empty, drained by recent business lapses and particular loans. However, who did? If she didn't have the plutocrat. Ivy's decision to come forward adds another subcast of complexity. She tells investigators she saw someone arguing with the victim shortly before the estimated time of death. Someone high, broader, unmistakably manly. She hesitates to name him outright, but her description narrows the field. The disclosure sends shockwaves through the family circle, as dubitation shifts toward individualities formerly considered above reproach. Ridge grows protective when subtle hints point in his direction, while Bill bristles at the idea that his name might indeed be rumored in connection with murder. As days pass, cracks appear in the executions case. Forensic analysis reveals that the fingerprints on the armament, originally attributed to Dylan, are partial and could have been transferred laterally. A lab technician still admits the chain of guardianship attestation contains a gap of nearly 45 twinkles. That window becomes the defense's lifeline. What happened during those 45 twinkles? Who had access to the substantiation? The courtroom becomes a battleground of oddities and mortal emotion, each side presenting contending narratives of verity. In one particularly haunting sequence, observers are shown a repaired timeline of the night in question. The victim receives a cryptic textbook communication instructing them to meet at an isolated property. Dylan also receives a communication, though hers appears to come from the victim, prompting a battle. When she arrives, she finds the victim formerly injured but still alive, heaving out fractured words about treason and exposure. Panicked and hysterical of being intertwined, she flees rather of calling for help, a fatal mistake that now defines her public image. But as she recounts this to her attorney, one detail stands out: she heard steps retreating through the reverse corridor just before she entered the room. She assumed it was an observer. Now she wonders if it was the killer. RJ begins his own quiet disquisition, driven by love and despair. He hacks into old security libraries, interviews staff members who might have seen commodity, and indeed confronts Bill about rumors of blackmail. Bill, ever composed, denies involvement but admits the victim had approached him weeks before with information that could destabilize multiple connections. People cover what matters to them, Bill says cryptically, leaving RJ unsettled. Meanwhile, Brooke seeks out Dylan in jail again, this time with a softer approach. She confesses that she, too, has been incorrectly indicted in the history, judged roughly by those who no way knew the full story. She tells Dylan that redemption is possible, but only if she fights with everything she has. The discussion reignites Dylan's resoluteness. She begins keeping scrupulous notes, establishing every inconsistency she remembers from that night. Her clarity contrasts sprucely with the execution's depiction of her as hysterical and unstable. A major turning point arrives when the coroner revises the estimated time of death. New analysis suggests the victim may have survived longer than originally believed, long enough to have interacted with someone differently after Dylan fled. This disclosure throws the timeline into chaos. However, also someone differently had the occasion to deliver the fatal blow, if Dylan left while the victim was still alive. The courtroom gasps as this possibility is presented, and for the first time, the judge acknowledges reasonable mistrustfulness. Outside the courthouse, pressures escalate into competitions. Ivy clashes with another family member, criminating them of withholding information. Ridge confronts RJ, advising him not to peril the family's character by playing operative. RJ fires back that character means nothing if an innocent person is locked. The generational peak becomes stark. The aged Forresters prioritize heritage, the youngish Bones prioritize verity. Late one night, a mysterious envelope is delivered anonymously to Dylan's attorney. Inside is a flash drive containing security footage from a near parking structure. The footage shows the victim arguing with a shadowed figure whose face is obscured, but whose watch gleams unmistakably under the lights, a custom piece known to belong to a specific existent. The defense hesitates before revealing the footage in court, apprehensive that doing so will enkindle a media disagreement. But they've little choice. When the footage is played before the jury, the pressure is electric. The shadowed figure's posture, voice meter, and distinctive watch point toward someone observers would no way have suspected a trusted supporter who had intimately supported Dylan's arrest. The courtroom erupts in whispers. The indicted individual denies everything, claiming the videotape is manipulated. Prosecutors scramble to recapture control, arguing that the footage proves only an argument, not murder. As the trial nears its climax, the emotional risk becomes inarguable. RJ's health suffers, Brooke loses sleep. Ridge grows decreasingly unpredictable. Indeed, Bill seems less certain of his own invincibility. The victim's family, grieving and furious, demand justice, averring that someone must pay. Their pain underscores the tragedy at the heart of the spectacle. A life has been lost, and no verdict can restore it. In a stirring twist, the preliminarily silent lab technician comes forward with a concession. She was dragooned to overlook disagreement in the substantiation. She doesn't name who dragooned her, but her admission casts a long shadow over the integrity of the disquisition. The judge orders a temporary halt to proceedings while the new information is examined. Dylan, watching from the defense table, feels stopgap flicker for the first time since her arrest. The pause in the trial allows for deeper soul-searching among the characters. RJ visits the scene of the crime alone, standing in the quiet corridor where everything unraveled. He imagines the steps Dylan described, the fear in her voice, the treason suggested by the victim's dying words. He realizes that this case isn't just about proving innocence. It's about defying the culture of secretiveness that allowed resentment and manipulation to mold Unbounded. When court reconvenes, the defense presents a cohesive, indispensable narrative. The victim had been orchestrating a web of blackmail, targeting multiple individualities with dangerous secrets. On the night of the murder, one of those individualities snapped, defying the victim and delivering the fatal blow after Dylan had formerly fled. The argument is compelling, weaving together fiscal records, revised timelines, and the recently surfaced footage. The jury listens hardly, their expressions undecipherable. The final occurrences of the bow make toward a verdict that feels both ineluctable and uncertain. As closing arguments echo through the courtroom, Dylan locks eyes with RJ, quietly promising that whatever happens, she'll not let this define her ever. The jury deliberates for hours that feel like days. Outdoors, cameras capture every gash and rumored prayer. When the verdict is eventually read, it sends shockwaves through Los Angeles. Dylan is set up, not shamefaced, due to reasonable mistrustfulness. The courtroom erupts, some in relief, others in outrage. The true killer's identity remains fairly unproven, but dubitation has shifted irrevocably. The person intertwined by the footage faces renewed disquisition, their formerly untouchable status worsening. Yet freedom doesn't equate to peace. Dylan steps out of the courthouse into bedazzling sun, apprehensive that her character may no way completely recover. She embraces RJ, their reunion bittersweet. Brooke watches with conservative sanguinity, while Ridge contemplates the cost of secrets left to spoilage in darkness. The victim's family vows to continue seeking answers. Icing the riddle lingers indeed after the trial's end. In the ending montage, observers see the suspected true killer alone, gaping at the indicting watch, their expression visited. A single line of dialogue, "It was no way supposed to go this far," confirms guilt without a courtroom concession. The camera pulls back, leaving Cult with the knowledge that justice in this world is infrequently absolute. This extended saga reinforces why The Bold and the Beautiful remains a masterclass in reissued liar. It blends love, contest, and moral nebulosity into a shade where every character carries both virtue and excrescence. Dylan's shocking arrest becomes further than a plot twist. It becomes a catalyst for metamorphosis. Connections are tested, commitment readdressed, and the vision of certainty shattered. In the end, the question who really killed the victim is answered not just by substantiation, but by the recognition that verity frequently hides in the murk cast by love, ambition, and fear.